Now back to more of the Sunday Express with Gary Allen on AM 880, The Biz.
And welcome back, everybody. Gary Allen with you here on the Sunday Express on 880 The Biz. My guest is Anita Faye with her new CD, Kingdom Journey. We just heard one cut from it, Cast My Cares. What a beautiful voice, Anita. I meant to say that in the first part of the program. I mean, what a marvelously gorgeous voice.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
One question that we talked about the other day on the phone, and then we're going to get to some other things. I've never asked an artist this question before. The selection and the layout of the CD, which, by the way, was mixed right in Miami at 36th Street Studios. How did you select, because Kingdom Journey is the number 2 cut, but you have I Gotta Know that's the first cut. How did you lay out this CD? What was the thought process behind laying out the different songs? You don't have to go through each one, but just give us a rough idea of the selection, how you went about it.
Yeah, it's a great question because it definitely takes a lot of consideration. There's a continuity that we wanted to build with the listener and just making sure that there's a bit of a narrative that threads the material together thematically, as well as gives an opportunity to have, some up-tempo or mid-tempo stuff, and then maybe some ballads, and then swing back up a bit more with the tempo of certain songs later on. So because the name of the project we selected as Kingdom Journey, I thought it made sense to, start the project with a bit of a backstory, I guess you could say, about me and maybe some of my experiences in I Gotta Know. And that place of, having moments where you may doubt or you're not sure of certain things because of what comes into your life and situations that may even have you questioning your faith, that whole cycle, that we go through in this walk or this journey, that it's okay to not only ask those questions and sort of explore it a bit, but eventually get to the point in the arc of your story where things sort of, come full circle and that pendulum swings again, and you find yourself, back into a good place in your faith. And so I think the way the songs have been mapped out really sort of lead to that part of like the storytelling of a person's journey, and my journey in particular.
Speaking of your journey, I know what the business is like. From my perspective, not just as a talk show person, but someone who was an actor. And I had a roommate when I lived in Los Angeles that was an engineer. He was a senior engineer at A&M Records, which is the old Charlie Chaplin studios owned by Herb Alpert and his partner. They no longer own it. Now it belongs to someone else. But what's the business side of it been for you? I mean, getting your CD played. I know Lynn McCain, who's a dear friend of mine. She won't come on my show.
Really?
No, I don't know why. And I love her to death. I mean, I always hate that when I say that, but I love Lynn. I think she's a wonderful person and Benita and everybody there at the McCann. But she's reluctant to come on the show. She said she doesn't do interviews, but we got to convince her that, even though I'm a lousy interviewer, she'll come on one of these days, I hope. But
I'm sure we can work on her.
Yeah. What's the business been like for you as an entertainer, and you live in, entertainment city in a sense, as far as getting the breaks? And, the door has probably been closed a few times if I know show business like I do. And like I said, my roommate was an engineer at A&M Records. As a matter of fact, I was there the night that they recorded We Are the World. What's it been for you? I mean, what's the climb been like, and faith has brought you through all of it?
I'm going to use a combination of words that I probably never used before to describe it in answering that question, but I would say both strange and oddly sensational. So
okay.
What I mean by that is, full well the strange part, right? It is unique business filled with all kinds of characters, a motley crew, and folks that in other walks of life, because it is a business after all forms of the entertainment world, our business, whether it's, music or television, film, all of that. It is a business, but it operates in a very different type of business philosophy than like corporate America, if you will. And certainly in terms of the fairness or the equity when it comes to artists and songwriters, there's still a lot of work that needs to happen. And a lot of the PRO organizations, the BMIs, the ASCAPs of the world, they've been working on different parts of that to make it more fair and equitable. So there's that component of it. It's strange. But then there's the oddly sensational part of today's world that we live in. It's such a digital era, and everything from music production to distribution to audience building, the social media component have changed the way people both engage with music and with artists and creators, as well as just the unique opportunity that it affords for people to be independent and to become successful, as an independent artist. And those luxuries, I would argue never really existed before, because you did have to rely on the big machine, in order to get anything done. And now there's so much more opportunity for people to say, no, I've got a good story to tell, or I've got a good song, to promote. And as long as you are able to tap into multiple new channels, that didn't formerly exist, then I think it's a great opportunity, and people can sort of chart a new course for themselves. So that part of it is the exciting part, and, seeing how much more can be explored. With that, I would say, going back to the strange side of things, this is also one of the few businesses that you'll encounter where it's permitted, encouraged, and legal for people to basically justify not paying you what you're worth, streaming services and all of that. And, even radio formats have changed quite a bit over the years, and terrestrial versus online radio, like all of that is just so new and weird and interesting. I think there's a lot more advancement to come when it comes to the music business, and I pray that it will come in good ways that benefit everyone. But it's very unique, very, very unique.
It is. The doors that have been slammed in my face for a number of reasons, and people will often say, well, if you're related to somebody famous, that right away will propel you to stardom. Well, I'm here to tell you that I have known a lot of children that were daughters and sons of famous singers or actors that did okay, but Frank Sinatra Jr. never reached the pinnacle of success that his father did. Richie Martin, who was Dean's one of his youngest sons, was a dear friend of mine. He never reached it. Dina, who will probably be on this program sometime this fall, she was Dean's oldest and a good friend of mine. She has reached success, but nothing fabulous, nothing great. But yeah, a lot of people have this feeling that you've got to be related to somebody to make it, and you don't. You just have to, when you get the opportunity, when the door opens, you've just got to be able to hit the ground running, and you also have to take care of business, because there are a lot of shady people, Anita, in this business that will take advantage of you, the gropers, the hangers-on, in all forms. You describe yourself as a late bloomer. Talk about that, because I've been feeling like that about myself for most of my life. The light bulb doesn't go on until well after everybody else's light bulb went on 10 years earlier.
Yeah, I used to beat myself up a lot about that, and I think a lot of people can relate and perhaps have done the same thing, because we're told, and things are sort of breathing down our necks that these societal norms exist. Oh, by the age of X, you should be doing X, Y, and Z. You should have your college degree. You should be into your career. You should have, you should be married and have 2.5 kids with a dog and the white picket fence, or whatever those norms are that people sort of put out there. If you haven't met those milestones, and if you haven't felt like you've accomplished certain things by a certain time, it can definitely lead you to think, well, geez, I'm not on the ball, and I haven't made my mark yet in the world, and yet all of these people that we might applaud because they've reached a certain level of success in their youth, it still is far outnumbered by the larger set of people that we could point to who have accomplished great things later in life. And you mentioned, Colonel Sanders earlier, who I think is a prime example of that, getting his restaurant and his chain off the ground much later than in his 30s and 40s. And so, when we allow ourselves to cut ourselves some slack, basically, is when I think we can come up for air and say, it's okay if certain things didn't happen, because in those things not happening, I think sometimes God spares us from certain things too, whether it's calamity or destruction, or people that would have been there waiting to take advantage of us that we were shielded from, those types of things. And the wiser we get, and I hope for myself that the older I get, the wiser I become, and the more lessons you get under the belt, the more prepared you're going to be for that thing that does happen. And when it's time, it will be time. And there is no magic number for any of us as long as we just keep striving, and not give up.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%, and I think a lot of times the late bloomers are the ones that maybe took a little bit longer to mature or to understand their talent or their ability, whether it be business or show business or an artist or whatever the case may be. And sometimes the people who have tremendous success, Anita, in the show business world or in life, in particular athletes, by the time they're in their mid to late 30s, they're done. They're finished, and hopefully they've put some money away and they have a second chance at life at something else. But a lot of people in the athletic community, if you're not successful by the time you're in your mid to late 20s, it usually you're pretty much hitting the wall. Whereas in life, sometimes in my case, I kind of took 10 years off and took care of responsibilities that I had to, and then came back to this business. And so it's been a little bit of a haul for me too. And I'm with you. I feel like a late bloomer, but you know what? It's better to be late than never to the party at all.
Amen to that.
Yes.
Well, and look at this too, because I think this is another part of that dialogue that often gets neglected or not discussed much. And that is that some of these folks that we see bloom earlier in life, right?
Yeah.
When you look at their backstory, you see that there are certain advantages that they may have had. Whether it's the athlete who had private coaching lessons because their family could afford it, compared to someone who didn't have those same advantages to get them, in the middle of the right networking game and have certain doors open for them. Same thing in the entertainment business, where there are people that do have a bigger support system with a lot more dollars that they can spend to, get certain things to happen. And some of it goes back to, I don't know if you are a fan of Malcolm Gladwell and his book Outlier, but when he talks about the 10,000 hours, you look at groups like the Beatles, which he cites in that book as a prime example of, a lot of people look at them as an overnight success story, but the reality is they were grinding it out, playing a bunch of shows, doing dive bars and stuff, that they were putting in the time. And then they had something, that happened. But not everyone has those same opportunities afforded to them. Not everyone is in a situation where they can focus just on their craft because they've got to contribute to the household. They've got to be someone that's helping to make ends meet. And so sometimes we beat ourselves up for things that are beyond our control as well. And that's the beauty, I think, in being a late bloomer, when you persist and keep going and keep going and keep going. And yeah, it may have taken longer for you, but the reality is you fought harder to get where you are than some people who didn't really understand the advantages that they had right in front of them.
We're gonna take one more question, and then we're going to play the next song from this CD, which, by the way, folks, please go out and get this CD. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it download it on iTunes. It is a fabulous CD. It's got a great picture on here. And this is a beautiful young lady, and I'm jealous she's married, therefore I don't stand a chance. It's Anita Faye with A Kingdom Journey. Anita, before we listen to the next cut, one quick question to you. Best advice you ever got in the business?
Be true to who you are. Be authentic.
Yeah, because if you're somebody else, the phoniness comes through right away.
Immediately.
And there's enough of that.
Yeah.
And there's enough phony balonies in show business anyway. Pretentious people who just in Vegas would drive me nuts. I mean, just, people who were just crazy people. The next cut that we're going to listen to, With Gladness, which is the 10th cut on this CD, is what's the story behind that before we go to it?
Well, I love this track, and partly because it's just like catchy and energetic. It's a Caribbean-inspired song, but it was written by my husband, so I'm proud of him for bringing his flavor to the project. And he actually grew up in Trinidad, so he's from Trinidad and Tobago.
Yes, Trinidad and Tobago, yes, where they never get a hurricane.
Right? It's not fair.
It's not fair.
But there's sweltering heat, so, there's humidity and all that, which they can keep that part of it. But it's a beautiful location, and, the project has that eclectic dynamic that we were talking about before, some diversity with different sounds. And so I'm just thrilled that we were able to, bring this into the vibe of the whole project and introduce some of his, background into the mix.
Okay, well, we'll take a break. Gary here, Gary Allen with Anita Faye on listening to her new CD, Kingdom Journey, right here on 880 The Biz, as we are on the Sunday Express here at 5 o'clock every Sunday. Let's listen to With Gladness.
To magnify his name, we come to shout the highest praise. We come to lift him up higher, higher. Oh, come before the Lord with gladness. Before the Lord, enter his courts with praise. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Jesus alone is worthy, worthy. Let's bless his holy name. Oh, come before the Lord with gladness.
Now back to more of the Sunday Express with Gary Allen on AM 880, The Biz.
And welcome back, everybody, to the Sunday Express. Gary Allen with you, as I am every Sunday, along with my co-host, executive producer, the wonderful, marvelous Anita Miles.
Nice.
It's actually
Nice.
Wanda Miles. And I'm teasing her with that. I've been teasing her with it all week. You're on 880 The Biz. And, of course, the executive producer of the show is Polo, who's barking out orders as we speak. Anita.
Has she smacked you yet? I want to know how she smacked you.
Oh, she'll get it. She'll get me later.
If only I could reach.
If she could only reach. She can't reach. Polo can, but she can't, Anita, you had a wonderful collaboration on the CD and the song, the follow-up song, All of the Above, with the Grammy, I want to say Grammy award-winning writer Betty Wright. Talk about that.
I was almost like, I don't usually fall silent to the point of just being speechless and doing a routine, but
Yeah.
when I got the confirmation that she was in and she was willing to help us out and contribute that track, I was just in awe because, I've always loved Betty Wright, and a lot of people, for those that may immediately get the connection by her name alone. She's the one that did Clean Up Woman many years ago. And as you mentioned, Grammy award-winning songwriter, singer, producer. She's worked with the likes of Joss Stone to Beyonce. I mean, she's just, she's got a full dance card. And so the fact that she even took time to help us out was just like a godsend, and I was deeply humbled and honored. But, she wrote that song and produced it with her team. And it was an amazing opportunity to work with her and to have her musical influence, come through, and to be able to just say that I worked with her is just like beyond words. I'm still sometimes pinching myself, to be honest.
Yeah, I know that feeling. I mean, I've had some great mentors along the way. I still have a few, even at my grand old age of 66, to, to give me advice from time to time. I take it because I take it from people that I really love. But yeah, she's something else. I want to talk about something very special in your life. You have a friendship with someone who has been at the forefront since the day she was born because of her daddy. and your friendship with Sherry Gordy. Of course, that's Berry Gordy's daughter, the Motown, the man who put it all together, and some of the best music ever. But I got to tell you something. I love the Temptations. I like the Four Tops, but I made friends with the Spinners, and unfortunately, they're all gone now. But those gentlemen were good friends of mine, and I loved each and every one of them. And I know they were at Motown for a while, but talk about Sherry's friendship with you. And I believe you sang at a special occasion for Barry.
Yeah, at his home, or I should say estate. When you get to that level,
Yes.
The special word.
Yeah, it's not the apartment around the corner, apartment C. It's you see that big estate over there? That's only part of it. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Like, my house is a speck of dust compared to.
Yes.
I mean, there's people who've made it, and then there's those who have arrived. And,
yes.
He's in the arrived category. So, you're talking about people whose pool houses are about the same size as most people's standard homes.
Well, do you want to hear something really humbling? I'm really good friends over the years with Jay Leno. And I went one time through invitation. A bunch of us went, and we went to see his garage where he has all his cars. It's an old Continental Airlines 747 hangar in Burbank. It's,
my gosh.
Oh, God. And he's got hundreds of cars and motorcycles in there. So you talk about humble, and he owns every one of them. I mean, his estate is to be somewhere close to over $1 billion, and he has no children, so the cars are all going to be given away to charity and sold and stuff when the time comes. But you talk about humbling. I have a little parking space out in front of my apartment. He's got an airplane hangar for his parking space. Now that's humble,
Yeah,
I mean, the front of his house, the empennage in front of his house is the size of my apartment. Okay, so.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the portagere. Actually, the portagere. I was going to say the portagere.
Yeah, most people don't even know what that is.
that's portagere is when you pull into a hotel and it's that roof thing where so you don't get rain on you. It's called a portagere. In Vegas you pick up all these fancy things. So how did Barry enjoy your song?
Oh, he was the sweetest person. He walked over to me, gave me a big hug, and just said, wow, that was amazing. And, you've got a great voice, beautiful voice. And he was just so great.
Mm-hmm.
And that was actually the second time that he would have heard me sing. The first time I was at one of Sherry's events here in Vegas, because she did it wasn't a review show so much as it was a tribute to Motown type of show. And so
right.
All of the artists were always, of course, encouraged to sing something from a Motown artist. And in this particular instance, he had come into town, and I sang Ribbon in the Sky.
Ah.
And I knew he was there, but that was actually the first time I had a chance to meet him. And when I walked over and we were doing our exchange and chatting, he said, I got to tell you something. When Stevie Wonder first recorded that song, I didn't like that song. This
Really?
was news to me because I never knew this history. He was like, I never really liked that song, and I always thought it was a sleeper. And I'm like, Stevie, you can do better. I don't know about this one. I don't know about this one. And of course, as we know, the rest is history because it turned out to be a monumental success, and people love it. They sing it at weddings all the time and all of that. And so he was like, I told Stevie I never really liked that song. He said, but you sang it tonight, and tonight I think for the first time I liked it.
Well, can I tell you a quick Stevie Wonder story?
Yes.
I was in Los Angeles, and he would come to the Improv to listen to comedians. He would sit, although the rooms are very small, the comedy rooms are very small, as you well know, from your time in Vegas, and he would come on certain nights when certain performers were there, and he would always say, and because I met him a few times, and I would do an impersonation of him, which he liked, but he'd always say, it's always wonderful to see you folks. It really is wonderful to see you all. And people would be astonished that he'd even say that. But he was, he would sit there and listen to comics. He loves to laugh. He's a great, great man. But I don't think there's any song he's ever touched that didn't turn to gold. I just,
It's amazing. Isn't
I
it?
will
And some of
listen.
the people
I
you
will
look
listen
at,
to
you
his
just like,
London. I listen to his London concert or watch it on YouTube all the time. All the time.
wow. Yeah,
I mean,
it,
and the concert is '08. It's from '08, and I still watch it because I had friends that were in his band at the time. But no, when so are you signing with Motown anytime soon?
we'll see. There's some initiatives that are going forward. So we'll see. TBD, but from your lips to God's ears.
Well, I'm Jewish, so I can probably get the message there quicker. We have supposedly a lifeline. Everybody always says how Jewish people are God's special people, and I keep thinking, really? Okay, if we're special, then how come we've been through the darkness and coming out through the light? We've got about 5 minutes left in the program, and I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the impact that your grandmother and mother made on you. I know we talked and hit on it a little earlier. By the way, we're talking to Anita Faye with her new CD, Kingdom Journey. Please go on to Amazon, go to iTunes or some of the major retailers online, and you can find this wonderful, wonderful CD. It's beautiful, soulful music by Anita Faye, Kingdom Journey, and every cut is a gem. It really, really is. And what a beautiful, beautiful face. I want to tell you, Anita, an absolutely gorgeous, beautiful face. If I had a face like that, I'd be successful.
You are successful.
Am I? I don't know. I don't know that. That's the one thing that I have asked a lot of actors, not on the air, but off the air. When did you know you were successful? And some of them that are extremely successful financially will tell you, I don't know that yet. Am I really? Do I feel it? So let's talk, and we've got about 5 minutes to go here, about the impact of your faith, your grandmother, your mom, and other people around you who have been there for you, including your husband, who have been there for you, who believe in you when those times have been the darkest and you didn't think you could go on.
Yeah, well, thank you for that question, and I'm going to try not to get choked up because I'm going to start with my grandmother, who, God rest her soul, we just laid her to rest on June 4th. She passed away on Memorial Day, so it's still raw, but it's also bittersweet because she lived a great life. She was 95 when she passed.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. Not very many people can say that, right, about having not only the opportunity to really get to know their grandparents and engage with them, but to see them live that long. Well, I wasn't there the whole time, obviously, but she achieved that age. And quite literally, exaggeration, she was my second mother, and it was me, my two sisters, my mom, and my grandmother. My grandmother was my roommate. We were very close. She taught me how to drive, and certainly taught me not only some practical life lessons, but some spiritual lessons along the way as well. And so she has always been and will continue to be near and dear to my heart. But this is a person who, based on the era in which she lived and grew up, her father was a sharecropper in Shreveport, Louisiana.
Anita, I hate to cut you short, but we got about a minute to go, and I just and it's a beautiful story. You are going to be back with me. What is the one thing you want people to take away from this CD?
Keep hoping, keep living, keep pressing, keep pursuing. It's okay to stumble in your faith. It's okay to ask questions. It's okay to doubt and to even feel moments where you're not sure about God and who He is. But don't get to the point where you don't reach out and seek the truth for yourself, and to surround yourself with people who are positive and who will sow love into your life. And, that question that you asked, I think, certainly started with my parents, my grandmother, my siblings, certainly today with my husband, who I have a lot of love and support with. But for each of us, the journey that we embark upon is what we ultimately make of it ourselves. Yeah. And that's why I keep reverting back to Mark 9:23, because if you believe, and it's the size of the mustard seed, we understand that scripture and the parable within, but it really starts with a thought. And
Yeah.
thoughts can be grand or small, but they take about the same amount of energy. So if you're going to think big. If you're going to dream big. If you're going to believe